granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello. I'm going to make the case that Britain has become a colony of... Yeah, I know lots of you might be thinking I'm going to say a colony of the USA, but not so. We have become a colony of Bangladesh and Pakistan. Not just a few immigrants here, you understand, not just a friendly partnership, but a real, honest-to-goodness colonialisation, and one that's happening without a shot being fired because the British elite are actually facilitating it. You might ask why. I can't tell you. It seems as just about as self-destructive as it's possible to be. But there you are. They're doing it anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments under the video when you've got to the end, of course. So, let's start with a definition. What is classic primitive colonialism? Well, you see from this picture here, this frieze here, which records the colonisation of Judea by the Assyrians. It's when a more powerful culture sees another one with usable resources. In the case of Judea, it happened to be olive oil, by the way, sees another one with usable resources, but weaker. And so that stronger country invades the weaker one and strips the resources. This was usually in the form of harsh taxes, or like the Judeans had to pay something like 80% of their olive oil production. So the form of harsh taxes, but sometimes it was also actual enslavement, as you see here. And this accomplished two desirable goals from the point of view of the imperial power. First, it resulted in the impoverishment and weakening of the invaded culture. I don't see how anyone can say that Britain isn't being weakened by its attitude to immigration, foreign aid and all that sort of thing. I'll carry on. I'll deal with that in a little while. From the point of view of the imperial power, it resulted in the impoverishment and weakening of the invaded culture, so that it's less able to resist any depredations that the invading culture might wish to impose, while at the same time the resources the imperial power is bleeding out of its prey is enriching the imperium and therefore making the citizens of the imperium more likely to be loyal to the emperor who's making all these riches available to them. A classical example from more modern times is what the Soviet Union did to Ukraine in the 1930s. The people of Moscow were well supplied with bread from grain grown or looted from Ukraine, while the people of Ukraine were reduced to eating rats, their pets, and sometimes each other. Well, that sort of horrible predation isn't happening anymore in the modern world, is it? Except it is. And it's happening right here. We here in Britain are being colonised. No, scrap that. We have been colonised. And the worst is most of us don't even realise it. You don't believe me? Well, let me tell you the story of a foreign ruler extracting taxes and resources from us while living in the mother country whence she is ruling us. Here comes the big reveal. Tower Hamlets councillor runs for election 5,000 miles from London. Calls for Sabina Khan to resign over her campaigning for Bangladesh political office. She lives in Bangladesh, but she is earning £20,000 in Britain because she is supposed to be a councillor in Tower Hamlets. This includes £11,898 a year as a councillor, plus an extra £8,000 for her role as scrutiny lead for resources, a position that requires her to examine the council's decision-making. And she's living in Bangladesh and imposing, as a member of the council in Tower Hamlets, she is imposing taxes on the people in that area, taxes which are going towards her salary. The difference between the biblical example I quoted before and what's happening here and now is this. Bangladesh isn't a stronger country than the UK. It's a country absolutely riddled with nepotism, subnormal intelligence and corruption. As bad as our political and military state is, we are the stronger force. So how come we're acting like a colony? The council has said relevant councillors have been informed by the council's monitoring officer that seeking political office in other countries while serving as councillors is unacceptable. Do you notice that? They say seeking political offices in other countries, not living in other countries, just seeking office, and that councillors must focus solely on the residents they represent and the roles they undertake in the council. But the idea that this woman is ruling British people from Bangladesh, that doesn't seem to bother them too much. And that's just one example. If it's unacceptable in a council, how much more is it unacceptable in Parliament? In March and April 2025, a campaign led by a group of around 20 MPs, members of Parliament, and here they are, mostly from the Labour Party, of course, they formed a bloc demanding that the Pakistani government be pressured to build an international airport in Mirpur. Mirpur is in the Pakistan-administered part of Kashmir. It's often referred to as Azad Kashmir. You might find that turning up. First of all, the general excuse for this is that those MPs are saying they're not asking for British government handouts to have this airport built. They're just asking for our British government to pressure the Pakistani government to provide the airport. And that's so that their relatives can travel to and from that area of Kashmir more easily. And they say it's not coming out of British taxes because they just want the British government to pressure Pakistan to build that airport. Well, not so fast. Remember, we're paying the salaries of those MPs, so we're paying for the time they spend discussing things in the House of Commons. If they're out there on their green leather benches debating not the needs of the people of this country, but the needs of people in Pakistan, we're paying for their time. And so that is a tax on the British people. Of course, then there's the time and paperwork that our civil and diplomatic services would have to spend on the sort of pressure these MPs are urging the government to put on the Pakistani government. And that's apart from the sort of quid pro quo which any Pakistani government would be mad not to extract from our government, because our government would be absolutely desperate and amenable to any blackmail so they could look good for those Pakistanis living here. So yes, even without a direct grant, that's Pakistan taxing the citizens of the UK. And then, of course, there's the other thing. I did say Mirpur, didn't I? Mirpur is in Kashmir, and Kashmir is a bit more than the stuff you make sweaters out of. It's disputed territory. Pakistan holds around 30%, That's where Mirpur is. And the other 70% is under Indian control. More or less, there's a bit of Chinese involvement as well, but we'll stay away from that for the minute. Basically, it's Pakistan and India head to head, with each of them laying claim to the other side, the bit they don't have. And there are frequent clashes between Indian and Pakistani armed forces of various sorts. The last eruption was near a place called Pahalgam, and that was in the Indian-administered bit of the territory. 5 armed Muslim terrorists infiltrated and killed 26 civilians, mostly Hindu tourists out for a pleasant afternoon. An airport in Mirpur, just across from Pahalgam, would literally cement the Pakistani claim to that territory. So if the British government endorsed an airport there, it would affect British relations with India. In other words, Pakistan, or these guys, would be dictating British foreign policy. So let's go through the list. We have wide-scale sexual domination and subjugation of British subjects, which is the sort of thing that happens when any imperial power takes over. We have laws forbidding the criticism of this ruling clique, and we have Pakistanis telling us whom we can play football with. And I mean Pakistanis, that is, the MP Ayub Khan was born in Pakistan. We have Pakistanis, again, actual Pakistanis, dictating our foreign policy, that is, trying to get this airport built in Mirpur. We have Pakistanis and Bangladeshis relying heavily on the taxes we pay in order to subsidise the handicapped children they're producing out of the cousin marriages they refuse to stop doing. And we have Pakistanis and Bangladeshis dictating our foreign policy. And of course, we have Pakistanis and Bangladeshis interfering with our girls and threatening our minorities, largely with impunity, because the police and the ruling classes are frightened of what they could do if they are not catered to. How much more of a colony could we be? Right, I rest my case. Comments below. Till next time, you can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.